If you were to walk through an ancient cemetery and look at the skeletal remains of a medieval peasant, you would notice something that seems impossible by modern standards. Amidst the decay of centuries, their teeth often remain perfectly intact, straight, and surprisingly white. In an era before electric toothbrushes, before expensive dental insurance, and long before the invention of fluoride toothpaste, our ancestors possessed an oral health that puts the modern world to shame. We are told today that without the complex chemical interventions of the 21st century, our teeth would simply rot out of our heads. We are sold plastic brushes, abrasive pastes, and chemical rinses as the only line of defense against an invisible enemy. But the archaeological record tells a different story. It tells the story of a time when the human mouth was a balanced ecosystem, not a war zone. In a typical medieval village, the average worker lived a life of brutal physical labor. Yet their dental records, etched in bone, reveal a rate of tooth decay that is significantly lower than what we see in the average teenager today. In many excavations of medieval graveyards, researchers have found that less than 20% of the population showed signs of dental caries, or cavities. Compare that to the modern adult population, where that number often climbs toward 95%. How is it possible that a person living in the year 1200, who never once visited a dentist, had a healthier mouth than someone living today with every technological advantage at their fingertips? The answer is not that our ancestors were lucky, nor that they were genetically superior. The answer is that their entire way of life was a natural defense system, but we have systematically dismantled for the sake of industrial convenience and profit. The first and most devastating blow to our oral health was the invasion of refined sugar. For the medieval peasant, sugar was practically non-existent. It was a rare, expensive luxury reserved for the highest nobility and kings. In fact, history shows us that as sugar became more available to the elites, their dental health was the first to collapse. Queen Elizabeth I was famous for her black, decaying teeth, a direct result of her access to imported sugar. Meanwhile, the peasants in the fields, the men and women we often pity for their poverty, were protected by their inability to buy the very thing that was rotting the mouths of the royals. Their diet was composed of complex carbohydrates, seasonal vegetables, and legumes. The bacteria in your mouth, specifically the aggressive strain known as Streptococcus mutans, thrives on simple sugars. When you consume modern processed food, you are essentially pouring high-octane fuel onto a fire. In the medieval mouth, this fire had no fuel. Without a constant supply of sucrose, the bacterial colonies that cause decay simply could not survive in large enough numbers to penetrate the enamel. This is the great irony of history. The poverty of the peasant was his greatest biological shield. But it wasn't just about what they didn't eat. It was also about the physical nature of the food they did consume. If you pick up a loaf of modern supermarket bread, it is soft, airy, and sticks to your teeth like glue. This sticky residue creates a perfect breeding ground for plaque. In contrast, medieval bread was a dense, heavy, and abrasive substance. As we discussed in our investigation into ancient grains, flour was stone ground. This process was imperfect by design, leaving microscopic particles of grit and stone dust in every bite. While this sounds like a flaw, it acted as a natural, daily abrasive treatment. As the peasants chewed their coarse bread and tough vegetables, this grit acted like a gentle sandpaper, constantly scrubbing the surfaces of their teeth. Archaeological findings show a high rate of dental attrition, meaning their teeth were worn down over time, becoming flatter and shorter. However, this wear and order had a hidden benefit. By wearing down the deep pits and fissures on the chewing surfaces of the molars, the farmer was effectively erasing the hiding places where bacteria usually settle to start a cavity. Their teeth were worn, yes, but they were smooth and easy for saliva to clean. Speaking of saliva, the sheer physical effort required to eat a medieval diet was a powerful form of dental hygiene. Modern food is pre-chewed, softened, and liquefied. We barely use our jaw muscles. For a medieval person, every meal was a workout. Chewing through fibrous roots, tough meats, and dense grains stimulated a massive production of saliva. Saliva is the body's natural mouthwash. It contains enzymes that break down food particles, and, more importantly, it is rich in minerals like calcium and phosphate. This constant bath of mineral-rich fluid allowed for a process called remineralization. When the acids in the mouth would slightly weaken the enamel, the natural saliva, stimulated by intense chewing, would step in to repair the damage immediately. In the modern world, our mouths are constantly acidic because of frequent snacking and soft, sugary drinks, and our saliva never gets a chance to catch up. We have traded the hard work of chewing for the convenience of soft calories, and our teeth are paying the price. Food industry wants you to believe that dental health is a matter of better chemistry, but science suggests it is actually a matter of biology and the microbiome. In 2013, a landmark study by the University of Adelaide analyzed the calcified plaque, or dental calculus, from hundreds of ancient skeletons. What they discovered was a biological catastrophe. They found that the diversity of bacteria in the human mouth was remarkably stable for thousands of years, even as we transitioned from hunter-gatherers to farmers. The medieval mouth was home to a complex, balanced, inner garden of microbes that lived in harmony with the host. However, with the arrival of the Industrial Revolution and the mass production of white flour and sugar, this ecosystem collapsed. The diversity of bacteria plummeted, and the mouth was taken over by a few aggressive, acid-producing strains. We didn't just start getting more cavities. We fundamentally changed the evolution of the bacteria living inside us. We have created an environment where only the most pathogenic bacteria can survive, and no amount of fluoride can fully compensate for an ecosystem that has been pushed so far out of balance. Even without modern toothpaste, the medieval person was not indifferent to oral hygiene. They simply used what nature provided. They understood that a clean mouth felt better and smelled better. One of the most common tools was the chew stick, often made from hazel or willow wood. The ends were frayed to create a natural brush, and the wood itself often contained tannins and antimicrobial compounds. They also utilized herbs that we are only now rediscovering in holistic medicine. Sage was a primary tool for dental care. Its leaves were rubbed against the teeth and gums. We now know that sage contains powerful essential oils with antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties that can kill the bacteria responsible for gingivitis. They used mint for fresh breath and rosemary as a natural antiseptic. In many regions, people used a mixture of salt and charcoal to scrub their teeth, a method that is actually becoming a trend again in modern, high-end natural toothpastes. They didn't need a lab to tell them what worked. They had thousands of years of trial and error and a deep connection to the land. Then there is the issue of Big Pharma and the fluoride debate. While fluoride is credited with reducing cavities in the modern era, it is a band-aid solution to a problem we created ourselves. Fluoride works by making the enamel more resistant to acid, but it does nothing to address the root cause, the toxic, sugary, and processed diet that produces the acid in the first place. The medieval peasant had weaker enamel in a chemical sense, but they had a mouth that didn't produce acid. We have built a world where we poison our oral environment and then rely on chemical coatings to survive the damage. It is a cycle of dependency that serves the industry, not the individual. The medieval peasant, with his stone-ground bread and his sage leaves, was self-reliant. He didn't need a supply chain of plastic and chemicals to keep his smile intact. He had a biological harmony that we have traded for convenience. The lesson we can learn from the medieval field is not that we should stop brushing our teeth or throw away our modern tools. The lesson is that the health of your mouth is a reflection of the health of your entire lifestyle. You cannot outbrush a bad diet. You cannot outrinse a collapsed microbiome. The perfect teeth of the medieval peasant were a result of a life lived in accordance with human biology. They ate food that required effort to chew, food that lacked the simple sugars that fuel our destruction, and they used the natural pharmacy of the earth to maintain balance. If you want to reclaim the dental health of your ancestors, the path is clear. Reduce the industrial sugars that fuel the fire. Increase the whole, fibrous foods that act as a natural brush, and respect the delicate bacterial balance in your mouth. The medieval peasant, often portrayed as a figure of misery, held the secret to health that we have spent billions of dollars trying to replicate with technology. Their secret was simplicity. Their secret was time. Their secret was a world before big food began manufacturing products that look like food, but behave in the body like a toxin. Every time you choose a real, whole food over a processed imitation, you are making a choice to move back toward that ancestral strength. You are choosing a system that prioritizes your vitality over a corporation's profit. If you found this journey into the forgotten wisdom of the past valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We are on a mission to dig up the truths that have been buried by the noise of the modern world. Your body knows the truth, and it is time we started listening. Join us as we continue to explore the medieval way.